Like there's tension in my body every time I'm about to want to fight. Like when my nervous system is like, yo, get ready, it shows up right here and in my shoulders. There's this like tightness. But the way that I figured that out was being able to regulate my breath, coming into my body and really asking my body, what are you telling me? Like, where am I experiencing this emotion? Where is this showing up in my body? And having a conversation with ourselves. We don't talk to ourselves enough. Like, we act like ourselves don't tell us stuff every day, all the time.
Welcome to another episode of Soul Shift Sessions podcast, where we have deep, transformative conversations to help you transform your mind to transform your life. I'm your favorite freedom and financial life coach, Coach Sapphire Star. And of course, I have with me my favorite co-host, Coach
Kyle McLeod.
And we are super excited, as always. I feel like I say that all the time, but I am excited.
Oh, we really
to
exciting
be
now.
We're really excited now, especially with our special guests. And before we get into the conversation with our special guest, Fatima, we are going to ask all of our soul shifters, if you would like to be a part of our tribe, make sure you go to www.soulshiftsessions.com and join the tribe. If you would like to join the conversations and come on the podcast and talk with us, you can go to www.soulshiftsessions.com and fill out the Be a Guest form. And of course, you can always follow us and all our shenanigans and our soul shifting on Instagram at Soul Shift Sessions. Now we're going to welcome our special guest, Fatima. Welcome to the show.
Greetings,
Welcome.
beautiful beings. Greetings, beings. Thanks for having me. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. I would love to start by, can you share with us a little bit more about yourself to the soul shifters?
Sure. So, I'm Fatima Mann. I usually introduce myself as Fatima and or the Barefoot Empress or the Barefoot Goddess because I never wear shoes and that's what people call me and that's what I like to be called. It's Fatima. Those are my pronouns. Everybody's like, "What's your pronoun?" Fatima, Barefoot Goddess, Empress. Those are all my pronouns. I like all of them. I haven't worn shoes for 10 years. So that has really catapulted me into the way that I think, the way that I speak, the way that I move, how I see the world and the forms that I see the world in. It's like different because I never wear shoes and that's different. And we're connected to the earth in ways that I feel like we've been disconnected from. So I use that energy to heal myself, to help others ground. I have a business called Love and Healing Work that I manage. I've been nomadic for 2 years. I'm an Aquarius. I mean, what do you want to know? I have a law degree. I have a law degree. I have a background in trauma conscious yoga. So I help people identify trauma in their bodies and how does that trauma impact how they do what they do in their personal life and how does that translate into in their business lives and then how do you do great work without harm. And so I blend all the things that I have learned through life experiences, certifications, degrees, and I help people really transform how they see themselves and others and how they move through the world through their consciousness, because most of us, we do things unconsciously. We're not mindful and aware of why we do what we do. We're just out here doing things. And so I just invite people to reflect and pause and take a moment to really ask themselves why and not just why, but what role did they play in their reality being their reality? Because we have lived in this world where we're supposed to be victims. And it's like, but you're not a victim of your reality. You played a role in how you got here, friend. And so how do you do that? So I just live that life. I live the life that I speak of, and I invite people to live a life where they can be their unapologetic selves without harming themselves or others on the planet.
Wow. First of all, thank you for being such an incredible human, number one. Number two, I forgot to introduce the conversation today, but everything you said is perfectly aligned with the theme of our conversation, which is living in alignment. And how do we turn our pain into purpose? And what a great way to start that conversation And then I love that every representation of the air sign is present today. I'm a Gemini, Kyle's a Libra, you're an Aquarius. Oh, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be fun.
3 air signs.
I'm
walking
excited.
through a road.
And the conversations that happen when all the air signs come into a room.
Come together. Listen, this podcast would go on for hours. It would
About
go
random
on
things.
for about random things, but we're talking about
It started off
talking
random
about-
in the green room. So
yes. We're talking about pain to purpose. How has that journey been for you? And at what point in your life you were like, oh, the things, the trauma, the things I've gone through can serve a purpose, a greater good in this world?
So interesting on that. I've been having this conversation about how I've transformed my trauma responses into things and practices that have made me great. So I grew up in the poster child, post-traumatic slave syndrome family. Like the impacts of slavery is embodied in my family and how we talk about emotions, how we deal with love, not knowing that love isn't harmful. So I have gone through like the abandonment issues, the mommy issues, the having to overcome sexual violence as a young child. Like I lived in darkness. I like to tell people until I was about 24. Like me and the dark were like this. I had a house there. I lived there. I vacationed in dark spaces. I mean, mean as hell. I could rip your soul out of your chest and sleep very good at night. And then I was a cutter for 10 years. So I was a self-harmer for 10 years. I cut myself through high school. I got graduated valedictorian, cut myself through college, got 2 degrees and a minor. Cutting allowed me to disassociate from the emotional world of humanity, like good emotions, bad emotions. I didn't have the capacity for any of it. And then my little brother started to get older. We're 15 years apart, and he started to notice my scars. And I never wanted him to be like me. Like I never wanted him to feel like I had to, something was like, okay, figure this out. Like, this isn't life. You're not living. And so they say our brains are fully developed at 24. So about 24, I started to, really think about living life without harming myself. But I still harmed myself in other ways, right? Because I just went from one set of harm to other sets of harm.
because your
And
brother
once-
won't see the other set, right? He'll
yeah. But he couldn't see the other set because he couldn't see me the drinking and going out and putting myself in harmful spaces. So I went from the cutting to not being mindful of my body and where I was and how I was moving in the world. And then at 26, I discovered Buddhism, or Buddhism actually like found me. I started working at a child advocacy center. Every child that I was seeing every day had been abused, neglected severely. And, how do you sit with that? Like, how do you sit with living in a world where adults are consciously harming children? And something said, look up, like, how do you do? I Googled it. Like, what are practices that can help move with suffering? And Buddhism came up. And so I started practicing Buddhism. I followed the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold. I got into meditation. Then I found yoga. From yoga, I got into Ifa. I met a woman who practiced Ifa, and I learned about spiritual practices. And that took my shoes off. So I went from not being mindful, right? Not realizing that there's suffering and I can choose how I suffer, to learning that suffering is going to happen and I get to choose what that looks like. So that meant that I had to now be mindful that I'm responsible for my actions and reactions, but I can only be responsible if I'm mindful, and mindfulness only comes from being in the moment. So I had to learn about being present and what that looked like. And then I started doing police brutality work and organizing and learning about vicarious trauma and the way vicarious trauma shows up as activists, as people who are helping those that are systematically harmed. People weren't talking about trauma for real and how it plays a role in what we do and how we organize in 2015. But I was getting access to opportunities to learn about trauma and how trauma shows up in the body, the way trauma impacts our brain. And I'm not the person, this is the Aquarian in me, I want to learn the thing first. So I'm not going to learn it and then teach you. I'm going to learn it and then use it on me and then see if it works. And if it works, then I can now tell others it works. So every practice that I guide people through, I have done for at least 2 years. And I've done it for 2 years because I wanted to see how I could respond to the seasons of life, because every season gives us these different emotions. So how do I use these different tools throughout different seasons? So what I ended up doing was learning that my trauma responses, I could flip to help people, right? Because I was accustomed to being in traumatic situations, I could help people in disaster relief work. I could help people, that lost their families to police brutality and violence. I could endure things that most people couldn't endure without being triggered, right? And then now that I learned about trauma, I can now regulate myself in traumatic situations and come out of that situation, take care of myself if vicarious trauma showed up, and then be in a space where I'm not harming myself, trying to help people, because a lot of people are hurting and hurt people. So you have the intentions of doing great work, but if you are moving through your trauma responses, you are causing other people to be traumatized too, even if you don't want to. So what I've learned is living 20 plus years in darkness and trauma and thinking that it's normal, right? Like I ran towards harmful relationships and pushed relationships away that weren't harmful, that were loving and kind. I thought people were crazy for wanting to talk to their parents every day and wanting to have relationships that were like communicative and people didn't cut people out and saying they love them. I was like, what's wrong with y'all? Like, that ain't love. Right. And then I realized, no, it was me. Like I had work to do. So for me, it's looking at my pain and realizing that it allowed me to talk to everybody. Like there's not one person in the world that doesn't know what loss is, that doesn't know what pain is, that doesn't know what suffering is. Now it may come from different aspects, but I've gone through so much suffering that now I can be in spaces with people that are suffering and see them in ways that is not just, oh, I get it conceptually, but I know it in my body. And that has helped me show up better for myself and others, because now I know that anything's possible. Like if you can live in darkness, you can live in light. And so I just allowed myself to swing the pendulum of if darkness is all I knew, then what is light like? And I invited light into my life in every aspect, in how I think and how I speak and how I engage with myself and others. And all of these ancient practices were given to me and they work. And that's why I do them. I practice yoga every day. I meditate every day. I venerate my ancestors and the energy of the earth every day. But I wouldn't be so close to all of this if I didn't go through the darkness of the pain of trauma and being abused and not being wanted. I wouldn't be this light and loving.
Wow.
Wow.
I get to go first. Otherwise, I'm
Go ahead.
right. I'm going to go. Things. One, you mentioned about trauma in the body. Is that something that you personally are locating within someone else, or is this like how is that being discovered? And then also, can I have an example of finding trauma in the body, and then what are the steps that actually help ease that out?
Okay, so I like to tell people how I learned it first. So in 2017, a lot of beautiful white women offered me space in their trainings as reparations. So fortunately or unfortunately, people that identify as white have privilege and access to opportunities of traveling abroad and sitting at these gurus' feet that look like us. And they come back to the States and they charge thousands of dollars to other white women to learn these healing modalities. I wasn't doing that, but these beautiful beings knew that people that looked like me needed access to this information. So the information that I learned was ways of being able to pause and recognize in my body the way trauma shows up. So for example, when we talk about police brutality and like Sandra Bland and, really working with that, I had to really recognize that my body was going in fight response, right? Like in the fight, flight, freeze, I was going to fight. And I'm always going to fight, right? But where did that show up? It shows up right here. Like there's tension in my body every time I'm about to want to fight. Like when my nervous system is like, yo, get ready. it shows up right here and in my shoulders. There's this like tightness. But the way that I figured that out was being able to regulate my breath, coming into my body and really asking my body, what are you telling me? Like, where am I experiencing this emotion? Where is this showing up in my body? And having a conversation with ourselves. We don't talk to ourselves enough. Like, we act like ourselves don't tell us stuff every day, all the time. And our bodies are the first response, right? That's what our senses are. So our body gets the smell, the sight, the taste, whatever. And then our brain computes that in whatever capacity. But it starts in the body. So going back to the body is like, no, not what you think, but what is your body experiencing right now? So I had to learn these are practices, but it takes stillness and quiet. And a lot of us don't want to be still. We don't want to be quiet. And we don't really want to listen, because to listen means that we actually have to accept that we put ourselves in situations where our bodies are saying, hey, stop, don't, no.
Wow. And
I want to share. Oh, go ahead.
oh yeah, this was the number 2 thing, which was you said about vicarious trauma. If I'm hearing that correctly, you're saying that when someone else is experiencing trauma, you can also experience it through through them. Am I hearing that correctly? Okay. All right.
So it's not, and so you have direct trauma, which is like the thing that is happening to you. And the vicarious trauma is usually it's based off those that are witnessing the trauma. So like police officers, first responders have a lot of vicarious trauma that they do not get a proper care for. And I think that's an issue. But so like, if you think about people who are continuously on the front lines of witnessing other people experience trauma, social workers, people that work with children in the family services, therapists, a lot of them are exposed to vicarious trauma, hence why they have their own therapist. Like because when you experience a vicarious trauma, you're triggered. And that trigger then brings up something in you, in your body, in your response. So then it's on you to then have the tools and practices to regulate yourself and see that this isn't happening to you. You're just witnessing it, and you can choose how you respond.
Wow. Okay. Sapphire,
Yeah.
you're up.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to the 2 things that you asked, Kyle, Fatima, about the trauma in the body. I remember I was living in California and I woke up with severe pain in my shoulder, and it was radiating down to, and it was on my left side. It was radiating down to my fingers. I went to the ER. I had MRIs done. I had x-rays done. It was like, we don't see anything wrong. And I'm just like, I am in pain. What is going on? And so I went through that pain for like a year. And then I ended up moving to Mexico. And I was living in Mexico and I was going to yoga. And I was this young lady was sitting next to me. And she said, I see you're in pain. She was like, tell me about the pain. And I told her about the pain. I told her about going to the doctor. They say nothing's wrong. And she said, oh, you realize that some pain can be from trauma or stress or things going on outside of our body that can show up as pain in our body. And I told her where the location of pain was. She was like, oh, that has to do with maternal trauma. And she walked me through this exercise that I can do. And it was so amazing because she did not know me. And she didn't know the challenges I was having with the relationship with my mom, but also the relationship with my daughter. And she invited me to come do a cacao ceremony with breathwork. OMG. That was one of the most transformative things I've ever done in my life. Just breathing and taking the cacao. And it was so healing that the pain in my shoulders started to go away. With me continuing the breathwork practice, me continuing doing yoga, eventually the pain went away in my shoulder. But I also reached out to my mom and reached out to my daughter and expressed the things that I was holding inside and I wasn't saying in fear of rejection. In fear of rejection from my mom, in fear of not being good enough mother for my daughter. I let that out and I expressed it. And my shoulder is 1,000% better. 1,000% better as a result of me adopting those practices. But I had no idea that young lady that sat next to me didn't even bring that to my attention because I had never thought about trauma like manifesting itself as pain in the body, even though I'm aware of it. And then speaking to the vicarious trauma that you talked about, as a clinical laboratory scientist working in healthcare, especially during the pandemic, a lot of times in healthcare, we become desensitized. But that's not human nature. We shouldn't become desensitized, but that's what happens in order for you to do your job. If, they're bringing a baby that passed away to the lab and now you got to take the baby, to the pathologist for review, or they bring in body parts. And even during the pandemic, I developed PTSD because bodies were, the laboratory is always next to the morgue. I don't know why, it always is. But bodies were piling up in the morgue because the funeral home wasn't coming to get the body. They was not having funerals. They were literally calling us in the lab to come help them remove bodies from the floor. It's like, we don't do this. What is happening? And they're like coming to us like, y'all got dry ice. We need to do this. We got a refrigerated tractor trailer outside. We need help. And I was like, what is happening? I came to my wit's end and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I cannot keep doing this. It was a lot. It was a
My
lot.
mother was an ER nurse back in COVID, and she was telling me about the trailer, the refrigerated trailer to bring in because it was the bodies were just piling up.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing that scares me and inspires me. It scares me. What scares me is that there's so many humans that face trauma in these systems, and these systems don't create space for them to like unpack and deal with it, right? And then what inspires me though is that it's an opportunity for us, right? Like I feel like now since COVID, people are now interested in wellness and trauma and PTSD. People thought I was nuts when I started my meetings with grounding and breathwork and meditation. Like people are like, why are you doing that in 2017? Because I'm like, because most of us are not regulated, and I want us to be regulated when we're having difficult conversations, because I have conversations about race and I have conversations about things that are very triggering, but I don't want you to be triggered by them. And if I start this with meditation and grounding practices, you're less likely to be triggered. Before COVID, people weren't for it. After COVID, everybody's yes, please. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Like people are really honoring their mental health and their mental wellness in ways that they weren't before COVID, which inspires me. But what scares me is that we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about how traumatizing COVID was for everybody, and how these little humans like that weren't in school, right, that are still missing. We don't talk about the little humans that were traumatized through COVID and how they had to go without their friends, and some of them have parents who they shouldn't be with, and they had to be with them for 2 years. And so like what, in terms of like healing journeys, I'm always interested in talking to people about life. So what are you doing to honor that COVID ruined all of us and we're not gonna talk about it? We just gonna act like everything's normal?
I remember having just a casual conversation with my aunt during COVID. I was sitting outside in my carport, and she's like, I think my uncle had just been taken, by the ambulance, had been taken because and that's probably the reason why we're on the phone, because he had to go to the hospital. And we're sitting there talking for a while, and she called and she's like, "Oh, this is the hospital. Hold on." So we're on hold, and I'm on hold for a little longer than I'm expected to be. When she comes back, she's like, "He's gone." Just like right then and there, And so it was, I remember telling a friend of mine that, hey, don't get too invested when someone dies, because this was the beginning and we don't know how long this is going to last. And there will be nothing left of you if you go too far south for every death that you hear. And like, it sounds cold to have to say that to him, but at the same time, he got it. Like he understood that this was a marathon that we were going to have to run in COVID. And this wasn't going to be over in 1 or 2 weeks, like people were predicting. Like this was going to go for a while. And nobody was safe. So yeah.
Y'all, I have so many stories, so many the things I witnessed, the things I saw, and then being constantly inundated because there was no shelter in place for me. There was no, staying in. Like I still was out. We still was out as healthcare workers. We still had to show up. And then you hear the news, you go to work, you hearing it. Like if you're 24/7 being bombarded with this, it and seeing the results, but seeing the lies. I work in the lab. Like, I knew what it was, but also seeing the lies that was being told on TV. And
Oh, I can't even imagine what you were going through at that time.
I had a very unique experience during COVID because I'm just me. So when the world shut down, I went on road trips. I went to Jamaica. I got on planes. I've been on herbs since 2013. I was in AmeriCorps Vista, and a part of my healing journey is I had told the universe that I wanted to live like Buddha, and so for the last decade, I have lived like Buddha. I'm no longer living like Buddha though because Buddha didn't make no money, and I need to make money. But like I had to have a conversation.
I agree.
I had to have a conversation with the universe. I was like, okay, I did this whole Buddha thing, but I need money. But so in 2013, I was working for AmeriCorps Vista, and I was able to get food stamps, and you can get herbs, dry herbs on food stamps. So I started to like, because I couldn't afford Benadryl and I couldn't afford allergy medicine. I couldn't afford it. So I started to take eucalyptus and peppermint, and I had asthma, and it really like helped me. And then in 2017, so for 4 years, I was just like doing my own teas, and I was doing my own research and reading books, and books written by people that look like us specifically, because I wasn't following people that didn't look like us talk about our bodies. No. So but in 2017, like, didn't make sense. 2017, I met this dope herbalist, and I was in law school full time. I was organizing around police brutality, and I was doing disaster relief work in Houston, and I had gone to Puerto Rico, St. Thomas, and St. Croix. So she had put me on like immune system herbs, respiratory herbs for my nervous system, all the herbs for all the systems, because I didn't know that all of our systems needed different herbs, right?
Right.
So when COVID hit, I had already locked down into my herbal regimen. And to me, it was like, either I believe that the universe and God, whatever you call that thing, got me. Like, either I believe or I don't. And so I have never had COVID. I've lived in a house with somebody who has COVID. I've given them this herbal blend that I had been using, and they coughed maybe once a day. They were actually on the list of like people who they had a CPAP and they overweight, like all these things. They weren't supposed to have the healthy thing. So for me, I just did the natural way. And I traveled a lot. I was outside. I didn't stay inside. I bought plants. I really tapped into being natural. And so I was regulating and traveling, and I'm not even gonna front. I was living my best life during COVID. And I had to really be like in this space of, I know shit sucks, but again, Buddhism teaches you that you can suffer. Like, there's going to be suffering, but you get to choose. Are you going to suffer for it? Like, are you going to make it worse? Like, I can hate that you hit me in the face, right? And you can hit me in the face. I could now go get a knife and then stab you for hitting me in the face. That just makes it kind of worse, or I could just slap you back, or I could walk away. But there's the sovereignty of choice. And so COVID really made me lean into my healing practices more. Like, I stepped away from my brain of being an advocate and a lawyer, and I really dove into deeper my healing. Like, I really looked at my own traumas, my mommy wounds, like where am I triggered? Why am I? COVID allowed me to be still enough and the world to be still enough, because finally people were still and they were quiet and nature was naturing. And it was just, to me, the first time where you can see nature grow and flourish in this abundant way that reminded me that we are all nature. Like, all of us are mini earths. If we just choose to sit down and be quiet, we can flow abundantly, because that's what nature did.
Yeah. And I feel like we were on the same wavelength, because in 2020, I left that job. I moved to Hawaii, and I was living on Big Island in Hilo, where there was no cases. There was no cases of COVID. So I was kind of like in my own bubble, right? I always jokingly tell people I was stuck in Hawaii during the pandemic. But then it finally did reach our island, and I did end up taking a job at the hospital there and still was working because they needed help. And so it's just naturally in me to do that. And then eventually I was like, okay, enough. And then I ended up moving to Mexico and living in Mexico during the pandemic. So I think that's an air side thing. Like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. It's like, okay, I'm not going to let that take me out.
Yeah,
And
my friends
even
like,
when
you
I
going to
came,
Jamaica?
yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
Jamaica for a month. They were like, what? I'm like, they're like, you're going to Jamaica during pandemic. I'm like, first of all, do you see the flights and these flights? Yes. Yes.
I'm out.
Listen, living in Hawaii during the pandemic, I don't want to say amazing, but amazing because I had lived in Hawaii pre-pandemic and it's expensive.
Yeah.
What I was saying, I'm living in paradise for next to nothing. I remember I was paying like $1,200 for rent on this beachfront condo that came with a vehicle. It came with a car. Like that's unheard of in Hawaii. Like unheard of. But there was no tourists, there was none of that. And I got the beaches to myself. Like nature was thriving because people weren't coming with their chaos. It was beautiful.
I was thankful that our family was one of those families that actually could live under the same roof for 2 years straight without, being at each other's throat. I was very thankful for that. And the other thing, the one challenge that we had here was obviously the schooling. When the kids had to do virtual classes, they did not do well at all. And it was, all the kids seemed to be having some challenges with that type of learning because they were so used to being socialized with each other and taking classes with each other live. So but outside of that, it was a very peaceful time for us. Obviously people were dying around us and those stories were horrible, but I was probably in a lot better shape. It's just like, well, guess I'll go work out. I guess I'll go ride my bike somewhere.
Go walk.
Or
Yeah.
walk, right? Because there's no one literally out there. And so that might have been one of the things that helped me really fall in love with cycling was because I was outside and I didn't need to be with people while I was out there. As long as I had this bike, I could go and see, what Jacksonville had to offer.
Yeah.
But that's how you turn the pain, right? Like you turn your pain into triumph. Like the world shut down. It was really painful to watch. But for me, I call them adventures. I went on daily adventures. So I would walk all the neighborhoods I hadn't walked before. I would that's how I learned that my body could walk from up to 5 to 7 miles at a time. And then I was like, oh, and then I can walk back 5 to 7 miles. So I can do 14 to 16, miles a day, just walking because I haven't seen it. Right. And so when people are like, you'll walk, I'm like, yeah, I can. My body is like, why not? But that was me turning I'm not going to be stuck in the house. Right. I'm not. And nature is one of the most healing things ever. And we have been colonized out of being in nature. Like we have been conditioned to believe that 4 walls hold the healing and the love and the abundance that is in nature, and it doesn't. I'm like, every time I go outside and sit in the trees, I'm like, okay, so what was that not about again? Like,
Yeah.
what was that? Why was, or even I'll go out and I'll have a good cry, or, being able to just, for me, not wearing shoes and feel the moss and feel the reset and feel the wisdom of the earth and knowing that there's nothing new under the sun. And I'm not alone, and I'm breathing the same air that you are. We're on the same exact planet. I don't feel the vibration in 4 walls. I feel that when I go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My challenge with being outside is that those mosquitoes really like me. Like they like me too much.
Got that
And
sweet
then
meat.
The gnats, like they all like to buzz around my ears. Like, you know what? I'm going in the house. I would love to be outside more, Fatima, but I tell you, and I don't like using those chemicals to kind of ward off the insects. But
You can use citronella. It's a natural.
they
essential
I've
oil.
tried citronella. They like me, Coach. They
So
like
you
me.
gotta do a blend, friend, and you gotta do a blend. And so I usually do lemongrass, eucalyptus,
Yep.
and citronella. And
Yeah.
the eucalyptus I know work because a Rasta told me about this when I brought supplies to St. Thomas after the Hurricane Maria in 2017. And I'm like, and mosquitoes after a hurricane are ridiculous. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Ridiculous. But I
Standing
always
water.
but I carry around essential oils all the time. That's my first aid kit. I have a first aid kit, but then I also have essentials. And I'm like, what do I do for the mosquitoes? And the Rasta was like, eucalyptus man. And I was like, I got that. And I'm telling you, I make my own blend. I add it to my shea butter and I put it on, and I use also a handmade lemongrass soap. And I don't have it many, I don't get bit up like most people do, and also it's what you eat. Like, if you're eating things too that they want in your blood, then
You don't know what do they want, Fatima? What do they want? Okay, because I don't know what they want. If I knew that, I'll stop eating it. Okay, it is.
What you could start with the essential oils. Start there and to get the essential oil blend. Because I got me some from Mexico, and that stuff, I'm gonna be mad when it runs out because I bought it from. Obviously, I probably could make it myself, but I bought it at the flea market in Playa, and I'm like, this. It's an oil. It's so good. It's, oh my God, it's so good. And every now and then I it gets so soft.
Do you blend the oils and just use the oil straight, or do I need to put them in like water?
a carrier oil.
Put them in carrier.
Like water. I
Don't
love
put water in
no.
oil. No.
I was like, no. So you can use I like olive oil or grapeseed oil to put them in.
Okay.
I usually, though, because my skin likes shea butter, I'll do olive oil, shea butter, and then the essential oils, and I blend it and I whip it together.
Okay.
But so and
You can
then
buy it too.
yeah, but I usually either buy it from a Black woman that made it, or I make it. That's it.
Right.
Like either a
I'm down for
some Black
making
woman
it. I
has
just
made
need
it.
to know, like, what do I put in there? Because they like me so much.
Yeah, lemongrass, eucalyptus, and centronella is like, that's the best blend that I've had. And I go like hiking in dresses, or I go into wood with no clothes on, and I don't come out eating a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Same. I hike, I walk, I camp, I do all that, and they don't bother me because I'm
Gotcha.
putting that stuff on my skin daily. So
Yeah,
even if I'm
same.
not outside, I'll put it in my skin. So
Yeah.
yeah. So Fatima, and what I'm hearing you say as you talk, which I'm loving the conversation, is that you found a way to transform your trauma into your superpower and doing your love and healing work. And just for our soul shifters that are listening, what are some steps that people can take that are listening to your voice, hearing your story, and maybe like, man, I want to embark on this journey, but I don't even know where to begin? What are some tips and strategies you would give people that's starting out and wanting to go on this journey?
Mm. I would invite them to pause and take a breath and ask themselves what they need. Like, really, just take 3 deep breaths, inhaling in through your mouth and expanding your belly, and, contracting, and really pausing, not with any noise, and just asking yourself, what do I need? And sit and listen. And then from there, do it. Because what usually happens is our self will tell us what we need, but then we'll fight ourselves. And it's like, well, why are you going to fight yourself, friend? Like, you said, what do I need? And then you're like, well, I can't do that. And it's like, but that's what yourself said that it needed. You said it needed a nap, but you're not going to give it a nap. But then now you're mad because your life is falling apart because you're not listening to yourself. So it's, for me, that's how I started my journey. Was I literally paused and I said, I want to live a life where I'm not harming myself or others. And I paused and I asked myself, how do I do that? And they're like, well, you got to find some practices that allow you to learn how not to harm yourself or others. And then I had to be like, okay, where do I go to do that? Google, right? Like, I went to Google, and then I started having conversations with other people that lived the life that I wanted. And what I mean by that is I had conversations with people who are mindful, who are kind, who had love, who had relationships and could move through discourse without harming themselves or other people. I started asking people questions because I didn't know what I didn't know. So to embark upon the journey, I feel like first asking yourself what you need, and then giving that to yourself. And then also asking people around you how they got and arrived to where you want to be. Because a lot of times the people around us are our best teachers, but we don't want to be humble enough to just ask and learn and be like, hey, so I see you doing this. Just like, how did you get there? Like, people who make more money than me, I'm always like, listen, so what's up? Because I don't know. My brain don't do business. You know what I mean? Like, my brain does law and healing and the work. My brain is not thinking of being a billion-dollar mogul, right? But if I'm around people whose brain are like, yo, I'm about to be a billion-dollar mogul, then now I can sit around and watch them and I can ask them questions. It's the same thing when it comes to taking care of ourselves and being on our own self-love and healing journey. We don't know what we don't know. And it's okay to not know it because it's by design. And we don't have to beat ourselves up and like, I should know this. How? When we live in a society that has literally stripped us from ourselves on purpose. It's easier to control somebody who don't know yourself. If you don't know who you are, I can tell you who you are. I can convince you that who I want you to be is who you're supposed to be. And then that keeps you away from living in your own divine alignment. So if we start asking ourselves more questions, giving ourselves what we need, and then being okay with asking other people and being humble enough to know that we don't know what we don't know and it's okay. And having grace for the process. Because a lot of us don't have grace for ourselves and we don't have compassion for ourselves. And so we beat ourselves up before we'll say how amazing we are. We'll say what we need to work on before we'll say, man, I overcame this. We'll belittle the accomplishment that we set out for, like, because everybody can do it. And it's like, nah, love, like, you give yourself that love and that attention and that accolades that you deserve. But a lot of us, we don't have that graciousness because we haven't created space for it. And so it's creating the space to do this work. So if nothing else, giving yourself 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night to really be with yourself and love on yourself and check in with yourself. And like, I ask myself questions every day, all day. Do I like this? How did I get here? Like, you know how many people don't even ask themselves, how did I get here? Like, how did I get in this situation? What role did I play in this outcome? Good, bad, or indifferent? And just really being self-reflective, because we don't live in a culture that's self-reflective. We live in a culture that says, blame everybody else. It's your fault. It's their fault. Turn the TV off. Stop scrolling through your social media. Put your phone down. And really, all that time and energy that you're putting into your external reality, put it back into yourself.
You mentioned something that kind of stuck out for me, which was about harming yourself. And I don't think I actually considered being tired, needing a nap, and then not giving yourself that nap as harming yourself.
Oh, so I actually teach this. So I do a whole session called Cultural Mindfulness, and I have ebook that like introduces this concept. But most of us are out of consent with ourselves. So, and what I mean by that is our self would want something and we would do the complete opposite of what our self is asked for, right? I'm hungry, I don't eat. I want water, I don't drink it. I need to rest, I don't do it. I don't want to be, I said yes 2 weeks ago, but today it's a no, but I still go to that thing because I said yes 2 weeks ago. We move out of alignment because society says that we have to for the sake of a paycheck, for the sake of being a good fill in the blank, father, mother, sister, daughter. Society has given us all of these artificial constructs that keep us harming ourselves. Like, for example, we eat fast food like it's food, but it has no nutritional value. That's harmful, right? We listen to the news every day, and it's not the news that we came up with as a kid that had real investigative journalism and really like honored people. It's not that. It's toxic as F. But we continuously allow ourselves to take in that information as if it doesn't cause us harm, right?
Or we'll listen, away.
Right? And then we listen to music that's harmful. We listen to music or things that's degrading. So what we're doing literally in society is we're taking in all these things that cause us harm, and we call it love. I love myself. You do, but you listening to that? You watching that? You allowing somebody to talk to you like that? If that's what you are calling love, then I don't want none. Yeah. And I'm not being judgy, but I don't want none. And so how do we, Bell Hooks does a really great job in All About Love, New Visions, talking about, especially as Black people, how we've been conditioned to think love is harmful. And so we are harming ourselves constantly, calling it love. And it's like, but that's not it. And so when I tell people I unapologetically love myself, I'm going to go take a nap. Unapologetically love myself, so I don't eat gluten. I love bread. I love croissants. I love bagels. I love donuts. But my body don't love it. My body hates it. And because I love myself, though, I don't give it to myself. But don't mean I don't love cookies. It don't mean if you like a good flaky baked good that came from a bakery that day, baby, I love it, but my body hates it.
I
So
love
if I love
bacon. My body
myself,
doesn't love it.
but I love myself. If I love myself, then I have to be able to listen to myself and say, I know that you love this, but we don't love it, but you can't eat that. And I had to learn that I was harming myself with what I was eating and putting in my body because my body was having adverse reactions, but I'm still giving it to it. I love myself, but I'm around people who don't respect me and have shown me that they don't respect me, but I'm continuously putting myself in spaces to be disrespected. How is that me loving myself? But we've been conditioned to do this. I'm not special in this way. I'm not the only one, right? Women have been conditioned to put themselves out for the sake of their families, for the sake of helping people. Women tend to put like Black women specifically are dying at a higher rate of stress related diseases because we are so stressed out about what's happening around us and we're not taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm gonna take care of myself first. Like I'm not dying for nobody. Like I'm not over some stress. I might take a bullet for you, but I'm not gonna stress myself out and die for you. Nah, I'm not doing that. That's dumb.
It's interesting how even after COVID, it looks like even the willingness to accept what we get from our own families. It's like I'm not doing that no more. I'm not.
Yeah.
If that household is going to be about belittling and going to be about strife and downgrading, y'all can keep that. I'm not stopping by. I'm not calling. I'm not doing any of those things. I'm going to stay over here where it's nice and peaceful. And I met with, hey, I love you. Or can I have a hug? Like, I'm going to put myself in those spaces because I'd much rather give out hugs and tell my kids I love them than being in a place where, you feel like you're not good enough or, that you don't measure up and that you ought to be a certain way because this is your family. No. We're not doing that no more. Too short. Life's too short.
That ain't my ministry.
Not my ministry.
That's not my ministry.
Not my
Listen,
calling.
that's not my calling. And I'm on this thing where I protect my peace at all costs. I don't care who you are.
Right.
Mama, daddy, sister, brother, child. I protect my peace at all costs.
Right.
That's my priority. That's my non-negotiable.
Yeah.
So I've learned that family are a bunch of humans and we again have been socialized, conditioned to accept harm because of a certain title, right? You're my father, you're my mother, so I should accept you. You fill in the blank. And when I did my own healing, I had to realize that these are humans, right? And they have chosen to live their life the way that they've chosen to live their life. They have chosen to not do their own work. They have chosen to be the way that they are. It's a choice. And everybody's like, no, it's not a choice. You are shitting me. Excuse my language. It's a choice.
Yeah.
Because we are all sovereign beings and you can choose how you respond. You can choose how you relate to me. And if you continuously choose to do things that don't align with how I take care of myself and how I have consented to be with other people, then I don't talk to you. And I love you. I do, but I love myself so much that I'm not going to put myself in a situation where now I've allowed you to cut on me. Like if you have a knife and you're swinging the knife, I'm not going to stand in front of you. So why, if your words are knives, why would I do that? Now, I'm not going to lie. It wasn't easy to stop talking to my mother and people. Like I had to grieve relationship because it's a process of grieving, not having people in your life in the way that you thought that you would. But then also, I'm not losing my mind over nobody. Like, right? Like I'm not going to keep putting time and energy mending wounds because I keep putting myself in spaces to get cut. That to me don't make sense. If all you show me is that you're willing to swing a knife at me, then I'm not coming around anymore because I don't want to get cut. And that's my choice. Like it's your choice to swing the knife.
The hurt
And
people hurt people. And
I don't have time for it.
right. I'm not gonna let you swing your knife and hurt me because you're hurt about whatever it is you're hurt about. Yeah, I'm not getting in the way of it.
And when you think about it, it doesn't take much or there's nothing much required for someone to have a child. Two people could just meet, boom, bop, bam, and now you done bought a whole life. But it doesn't require a lot. There's no like prerequisite. There's no, let me make sure you, literally two strangers can meet. And now you have a person, now you have a life that two people have to choose to be responsible for, and they can just choose not to. Even with our sisters and brothers, that was a choice by two people. It just so happened we're all in the same house. Like, these things are just, we have no control over these things, but we're put into these situations, and then like it becomes this instant loyalty. But it's like, really? Well, why? Why is that?
Culture
Such
has us believing that was what we're supposed
right?
to
Like,
do.
I have to be, when I had nothing to do with any of these choices. I'm just so happened this is where I am.
How
You
long
know,
ago did we talk about people doing the best they can? However, their best may not be good enough for me.
So I always have like, people like to talk about this whole four agreements and doing the best and blah, 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 right? And it grinds my gears a little bit because what is the standard for best? And so what does it mean to do one's best, right? Like, is it a societal best? Have we come to a definition of what best means? Is it a subjective best? Is it an objective best? And the reason why I'm saying this because in ancient civilization, there was a societal standard that brought out the best in everybody, individually and collectively. Now, your best is you making money, you having a house, you having a car. Your best is maybe not like what is your best? Like what is our societal agreement on being the best version of oneself? Because to me, the best version of oneself is you actively every day checking in with yourself and giving yourself what you need. That's you doing your best. If you're not doing that, you're not doing your best. And people are like, well, Fatima, that's messed up. No, it's not. Because we keep on giving people this low ass bar, and we think the low bar is the standard. And we're like, oh, but you made the low bar. And I'm like, I don't care nothing about the low bar. The low bar is what our colonizers gave us. There's another bar, there's another vibration, there's another way that our ancestors and our people used to move from, that we have been traumatized, raped, murdered, and killed from.
I always
And
feel
that's
like you're saying the
harmful.
same thing though, because I don't go by I don't necessarily have a definition of what their best is to them, but I do have my own standard of operating procedures in a relationship. And if whatever your best is doesn't equal up to that, then we're just not going to be in relationship. If that makes any sense.
yeah.
So I
And
feel
and
like we're
that's the
trying to say
second,
the same
yeah.
thing.
Well, that's the same thing, right? Because it's saying, okay, because I think it's a subjective thing. Like, everyone's best is going to be different. And my best doesn't have to be your best. And I'm not holding you to that standard because that's your best. What I am responsible for, what I do have control over, is if I'm going to allow that to be in my space. And that relationship, whatever you decide your best is, because that's on you. I can't control people, but I can control me in terms of how I respond, if I'm going to stay in that space, if I'm going to allow that particular person to be my space. So though it goes to, everyone's doing their best, but that best may not be good enough for me. And that's okay too, because I can then remove myself from that. I don't have to be around that.
It does keep me from demonizing the person. Having that thought process keeps me from saying like, oh, this is just a horrible human being, especially like when it comes to family members. I can now just say, you know what, you're probably doing the best you can with whatever that looks like, but it's not good enough for me. So I'm going to exit stage right.
Yeah, because again, people operating from their past experiences and what they've been taught and what they know and whatever social programming or condition that they've been told that, oh, this is okay, right? But we don't know what that is, nor does
But
it even matter.
you literally have family members that think that it is okay to have arguing and strife and those tense moments. Like, this is what family's all about. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not sorry for that. No.
Yeah.
But again, like, so this is my law brain, right? You have this subjective version of their best, but it's not an objective standard. What's the objective standard of one's best, right? And so for me, the objective standard is really, how are you taking care of yourself? Like, how are you choosing to love on yourself and heal yourself? because that to me is your best. And it doesn't, again, that journey doesn't look the same as mine, but everyone should, like, ideally, if we're wanting to make the world a better place, if we're wanting to do things differently, everyone needs to take care of themselves. And not, I'm doing the best that I can, because people say I'm doing the best that I can, and you rolling up to McDonald's, you have type 1 diabetes, and the doctor saying that you don't need none of this, but you have continuously done the thing that has hurt you and harmed you, and you have not stopped to ask yourself, why do I keep hurting myself? You've just been like, well, I'm doing the best that I can. Is this the best you can? Like, the
They're
best that
not
you can
even
has been
looking at it as hurting themselves. They're not even
Right.
that particular mindset is not even coming across to a majority of the people that we're
But
encountering.
why? But then again, Bessie, and then it's going back to our societal standards. We have been colonized to believe that harm, right, is love. We have been conditioned to believe in the United States and most colonized places that if we're overworked, then we're loving ourselves, because then we get the material thing. If we go with convenience, that's the best, because convenience is easy. And we have been conditioned to out of waiting, right? We don't want to wait for anything. We genuinely believe that everything should just come to us, and burnout is acceptable. And my thing is, what if we shift the standard? What if the best of that we can do is you are literally checking in with yourself and taking care of yourself every day, whatever that looks like. That's your
Yeah.
best.
And also too, where do we extend the grace? Because I remember a time in my life, like I know my brain and how I think now and the things I've been exposed to as a result of going through particular things in life and making a decision at some point. But I also remember the version of me that did not know that, did not understand that, did not choose that, willfully ignorant. Right. And so where do we extend the grace with people in terms of saying, okay, this is where they are. And obviously we know where they could be, but just extending that grace and love and saying, okay, this is where you are. This is your best, but how can you do better? Especially if they come to you with that. Because some people choose to be in mediocrity. They choose to be where they are. But some people, like Kyle's point, like you don't even realize how deep you're into stuff and how things are impacting you, especially when it comes to sugar. Like we already know, especially with type 1 diabetes and all these things, like that stuff is by design. Like our society puts us in positions to poison us, to kill us by design. And it's not always as easy to be like, oh, I'm gonna stop, because we already know that sugar is as addictive as cocaine. So then it becomes an addiction, a drug addiction. And so just thinking about that grace and extending to people.
So grace, I think for me, I know grace because I've given it to myself. So most of us haven't given ourselves grace, so we can't extend that. The grace that I have grace, and also though, like, rapture is real. Like, right? Like God, Mother Nature will wipe us out, because how much grace can you have for, like, you know what I mean? Like there's a level of grace, nature is like, oh, I'll be graceful to humans, but then humans keep on destroying nature, keeps on killing things, keeps on doing things. And then when nature wipes us out by the hundreds of thousands, we're all mad. But how are we mad when every day we're continually destroying and killing nature, right? And I think that we're all nature is, to me, the embodiment of human. We're not different from Mother Nature at all. So if Mother Nature can be graceful to us and give us like all this time to course correct, and we don't course correct, and then she wipes us out, is she less graceful, or has she just met her max, right? I think that we get confused, or we mix up, like, oh, I have to have grace for this person. But if this person is willfully, like, because now you know, right? I've shown you, I've given you, I've told you, now you get to choose. And you're continuously choosing options that cause me harm. I can't keep on having grace for you, because now you are consciously making this decision, right? Like you are consciously, willfully, intentionally making this decision. And it's not like you're doing it over, 6 months and it's, you're falling off the wagon. I'm talking about in like 1 week, like 1 week every day. And then the next week.
We could just get through 7 days and you already on that stuff.
And as somebody who has an addictive personality, like cutting is an addiction, being harmful is addiction. Like I know what it's like to be addicted to two things. I had to consciously, willfully, and collectively, because we can't do it by ourselves. And people always want to
Yeah.
do things by ourselves, and we live in a society that says do it alone, and and we can't. And I think
Yeah.
that's the other part too, is like the grace. I can have grace for people. I have grace for people who are like, listen, this is all I got, and can you help me please, because I've reached where I can take myself. And so now I'm bringing in other people to help me. That's a space for grace. But when you sitting here acting like you know everything and that you can do it by yourself and you don't need nobody and you're still causing harm, I ain't got it for you. I'm not saying I hate you. I'm not saying that we can't like be friends, but you're not in the world that I'm creating, because the world that I've manifested for myself, people don't act like that. People are like, hey, I need help me. And I may fall off the wagon, and that's fine, but you're in community to be held, and you want to be held, and you allow us to hold you while you do your work. And if people aren't willing to do that, then to me, that's where the graciousness kind of like falls off, because where where can I hold you when you're not willing to allow yourself to be in this space to be held?
Ashe.
Wow. I love this
Ashe.
conversation. I
I
love
know,
every
right?
conversation.
And we could go on and on, but we're now at the favorite part, one of my favorite parts of the show, besides the amazing conversation, and that's our rapid fire round, where we ask our lovely special guests 3 questions, and they answer them in 1 to 2 minutes. And Fatima, are you ready for the rapid fire
Yes.
round?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Number 1, what's one small decision you made that ended up creating a massive shift in your life?
Taking my shoes off on April 14th, 2015. Taking my shoes off shifted
Wow.
everything. It changed everything. Like everything that man has told us is usually wrong. And we are conditioned to believe what man says first instead of looking at natural order. And if we live by natural order, if we work with the moon and the planets and the sun and nature, we can be in an alignment that is just like, it's unbelievably sound. And it's grounding. And I don't know, like taking my shoes off just changed everything.
Wow, that's beautiful.
that.
That's beautiful. I love that. What's the wildest or most spontaneous thing you've done in the name of personal development or growth?
Oh, the wildest thing.
The wildest. I know there's probably many.
I was like, have you met me? Like, we haven't really met me, but have you met me?
Oh,
I
listen,
would,
I know. Kindred spirits, I know.
I would say the wildest thing I did was the beginning. What the world called it wild. I went to Jamaica by myself for 11 days. I went to 4 cities, and I took the bus and I backpacked. And I did it because I wanted to know that I could. And I jumped from 25 feet into 35 feet into water. And it was a physical manifestation of my life. I could go anywhere I wanted. I could swim, so I could take the leap, and life was going to bend you up. But if you can swim, it doesn't matter. So I learned that I can swim. And so I can swim through life's hardships, just like I can swim in deep waters.
That's beautiful.
Okay, with the metaphor, I'm here for it. Was it Ritz Cafe?
No, it was the Blue Hole and
Yeah.
and the grill.
Nice,
Nice.
nice, nice. Okay, last question. If your mind had a theme song for that played in your head every time you had a breakthrough, what song would it be?
Oh, like a breakthrough, like, okay, so I randomly make up songs, and the song that I randomly make up is I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it. Who did it? Did it?
You did it.
Did it?
You
And then
did it.
yeah, I did it. So that's usually always what comes up in my head. And the little dance usually goes with it too.
I love that. If you ever need a backup singer for the songs you make up in your mind, I'm your girl.
Yeah, I saw that when I came for your birthday. You were great. So yeah.
Freestyle queen. Freestyle queen. Yes.
Oh man.
Fatima, this has been amazing. But before we go, I would love for you to tell us, what do you have going on in your life, and how can the soul shifters reach out to you and learn more about your love and healing work that you do?
Beautiful. So I am offering monthly virtual options. So one is called Embracing Grief with Love and Healing. So let's talk about grief and what we're grieving, but in a way that is love and healing. All of us are grieving something, and we don't talk about grief as a part of life. So I do that once a month. And also I do a Black Women's Healing Circle virtually once a month. So allowing Black women to really just be, for us to cry publicly. A lot of us don't cry publicly, and I want us to cry. I want us to embrace that it's okay for us to be human and have emotions. And so we have a Mighty Networks, where if you subscribe for $14.14 a month, you get free access to 2 of these experiences, the Embracing Grief and the Black Women's Healing Circle. And then we have a free Loving Healing Workforce meetup once a month, where you can talk about how you can be loving and kind to yourself and others, and teaching you the loving healing work principles. And all of those could be found in our Mighty Networks channel at Loving Healing Work. I'm on all the socials at Loving Healing Work. And also the ebook is out, so you can learn more about loving healing work practices and how you can be in consent with yourself and not harm yourself. It's free. It's a free download. And what else? Yeah, I'm around. So I'm always looking to collaborate and, help people, and really, remind you to drink water and take care of yourself.
I'm a sip to that. I
love it because, I got a message. I don't know how long ago that was, Fatima. And it's like, are you drinking water? I'm like,
I got the same message. Yes. We're going to make sure we take care of ourselves. And I'm here for it. Like you said, it takes community. It takes a tribe. It takes being around like-minded people. If you want to be better in life, surround yourself around the people that are doing the things that you want to do. And I promise you, you will get the things done. Right? You will get on that wavelength.
Yeah.
And get on the wavelength and drink your water. Drink water and mind your business. Mind your business.
I like that song.
Yeah.
Welcome. This has been an amazing episode, and so glad that you are here listening with us today. If there was any moment during the podcast that really turned a light bulb on in your life, please share in the comment section. If you know someone that can use a soul shift, please share this episode and our podcast with them. And again, you can always follow us and listen to the podcast on www.soulshiftsessions.com. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and do all the things. Coach Kyle, any final words for the soul shifters?
Of course there's a final word. There's just because someone isn't willing or able to love us doesn't mean that we're unlovable.
Dropping gems. And with that, guys, always remember to let your soul glow. Until next time.
Till next time, gang.